This is the 12mm f2 by Samyang, and it's probably the best small lens for the price for astrophotography. So I've been using this lens for the past year, and I've been using it for astrophotography, for landscape photography, because of its lightweight, small size, super easy to take around with me everywhere. And I'm just gonna show you how much this lens actually weighs. So I got a scale here, put it on 232 grams. Now let's compare that with my 24mm 1.4 lens by Sony. This weighs 561 grams. So in other words, that's 1 pound, 3 ounces versus 8 ounces. Obviously, this is going to be a full frame lens versus an APS-C lens, so you're not going to get that dynamic range that you're going to get with this lens. But just side by side, you can tell you're going to save a whole lot more with this one. And also, this build quality is a lot better. So this is constructed mostly metal, where this is pretty much some metal, mostly plastic. Now I'm gonna compare this lens side by side with some of the better competitors for astrophotography, which are gonna be the Sony 24mm 1.4 and also the Sony 20mm 1.8. Starting off, I have the 24mm 1.4. If you look at the corners, so those stars are pretty pinpoint. I mean, it's definitely worse in the corners. As you go to the center of the frame, it looks a lot better. But if you look at the corners of the 24mm 1.4, you're gonna start having a little bit of the trails here. And if I zoom out, I mean, you don't even really notice it. This is at the Pismo Dunes. But again, if you're looking dead on, you're not gonna see a huge difference here. I mean, these look incredible. You go to the side, you start seeing a little bit of those tails. There is some aberrations, but it's not significant. It really looks good on the Sony 24mm 1.4. Now let's check out the Samyang. Looking dead on, you don't really notice anything huge. It's really if you're just pixel peeping and getting up close, but this is where things get a little bit worse. So right at the sides, I would say that it's slightly worse than the Sony 24mm 1.4. I mean, it's definitely worse, but it's not by a huge margin, especially up in this corner here. But the other image didn't show a star right here at the corner. So, I mean, if you go to the corners, you're definitely going to see an issue. And if you zoom out, it's not that noticeable. And for the price of $300, you are not going to notice a huge difference here. All right, let's look at the 20mm 1.8. So I'm just gonna grab this image here. All right, so this is already zoomed in. This is the corners. This is probably the best lens out of all three. And if you look at those corners, I mean, right in the middle, it's like perfect, beautiful, pinpoint stars. And then you go to the corners, you're gonna see a little bit more aberrations. But I mean, look at those stars right there. I mean, you don't really, you see some tails on some of them you don't see anything at all. It's definitely obvious with the larger stars, but I mean, this is gonna be your best lens of all time, but you're gonna end up paying around $600 to $800 just for this lens alone. All right, we're gonna look at one more image. Beautiful in the center, go out to the sides. And I mean, you're still gonna see imperfections with the 20mm 1.8. I mean, look at these, but the aberrations, I mean, minimal aberrations, and you are gonna see slight coma, but I mean, this is the best of all three. And I would say this is as close to as good as you're gonna get with a good lens for astrophotography. All right, so let's look at vignette for a second. I mean, if you look on the corners, it's gonna be a little bit darker. But if you crop in this image, you're not gonna really notice it. And that can also be fixed with Photoshop, but I don't like how it fixes, so I'd rather just crop in. If you go to the Samyang and you look at the corners, I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, it's definitely there. This is an unprocessed image, unprocessed. There we go. So there's another good example of the vignette in the corner is really not that bad. And then back to the Sony 24mm 1.4. So if you look at the corners, definitely gonna see a little bit more vignette. I would almost say, I mean, it's hard to compare the vignette. They're all pretty similar. Nothing major that I'm really noticing. And if I was to rate all of them, I mean, the 20 millimeter 1.8 is going to be the best. For pretty much everything, it looks better for those aberrations, for the coma performance. The 24 millimeter 1.4, I would say that it's going to be in second place. And then the Samyang right here is going to be in third place, but it's not that bad. And that's what I'm saying here. If you need a really cheap astrophotography lens, this is probably the one to get. I mean, for $300, and it's kind of cheap plastic. You have kind of a cheap lens cap here. The only thing metal on here that has really good build quality is probably going to be this focus ring. Everything else just looks incredible. And if you're looking just for a really good budget lens that does excellent in low light, but as you are looking at those images, they're all really similar. They're all shot in the same location, and you're not really seeing a huge difference between a 1.4, a 1.8, and an f2. And the thing is, when you're shooting on an f2, you're actually going to get a little bit more depth of field than you're going to get with a 1.4 or a 1.2. So those stars are going to be really crisp. They're going to look really good at 1.4, but the problem is you don't get as much depth of field. So if you're doing like a landscape shot, you're not going to get as much in focus. And so that's why I wouldn't hide away from getting like an f2. I think an f2 is going to be excellent. I've actually shot really good photos with my 24 to 105. It doesn't do as well, obviously, because it's an f4, and it's not the lens that I would recommend, but if you want to get into astrophotography, you can definitely do it. And the 24 to 105 is actually not that bad of a lens. If you're new to astrophotography or you just want a lighter lens, I would say pick up this one. It's still going to perform really well. And the thing is, what you get with this lens, that you can't get with the other lenses, is you get a wider field of view. So this is a 12 millimeter. The widest one with a Sony would be the 20 millimeter, but this ends up being, if you use the crop factor, it ends up being like an 18 millimeter. So it's about the same as the Sony 20 millimeter, and it's half the price. All right, guys, so I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in astrophotography, definitely subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Have a great day.